Alireza, thank you for joining us again. We heard last week, we spoke with you about an unfortunate incident where a young woman died in the custody of the Iranian government because of a headscarf issue. And there appears to be another one that's surfaced. I know a lot of people have been injured, and there have been reports that a number of people have died in the custody of the government. But there's another case today that's come up. Can you update us on that situation?
Right. As you said, JJ, there have been several cases of specific young boys or girls who have been targeted and killed by the Iranian regime, and then their bodies were found later on or under different excuses. In this case, it's a case of a 16-year-old girl. Her name is Nika Shahkarami. She's originally from the Lorestan province in Khorramabad, but she was in Tehran. She was participating in the anti-government demonstrations, and then she disappeared for about 10 days until the date that they eventually turned over her body to the family, but not really allowing them to see them. They buried it in a different location, but some of the people who had seen the body had seen signs of torture, of rape, of mistreatment. Her nose was broken, her body was, deformed, and then the regime brought up this ridiculous story that she had fallen from the building. Apparently, she committed suicide, and these are the kind of stories that the regime makes. One person is eliminated. They say it was a heart attack. The other one is a suicide. The other one, accident. So there's like a chain of elimination, targeted elimination of those who chose to participate in the demonstrations, and so this way they can create fear among the population. Then they pressure the members of the family to hoping to find a cousin somewhere who would appear before the television and confess to the same story that the regime is building up, and no one buys any of these things, and the whole thing is increasingly backfire on the regime. And the latest case, as you said, is this case of Nika Shahkarami.
So um, we heard as well this week that the Iranian government actually had been conducting cross-border raids or activities inside of Iraq in the Kurdistan territory in the northern part of the country because of these protests, and because I don't know, maybe they're scared the protests are going to generate more attention and more problems for them inside of Iran. What have you heard about that?
Well, certainly these attacks were conducted cross-border, targeting the Kurdish dissidents, members of the Kurdish Democratic Party of Iran, and others who were targeted with the intention of creating intimidation, deviating attention from what is really happening inside the country, trying to build up repression and pressure on anybody who can play any role in the uprisings inside the country. Keep in mind that up until now, this is where we have entered the fourth week of these protests, which is longer than all the other previous uprisings from 2017, 2018, 2019 to 2020. And this is a clear indication that the population are so determined, and you can see it in their slogans, death to Khamenei, death to the dictator, death to the oppressor, be it the Shah or the clerics, showing that things are expanding. You have the young students getting involved. A lot of the school girls are involved in protesting against the regime, chanting slogans against the government. University students got involved. Over 100 universities were involved over the past 3 days after the regime targeted the top elite university of Iran, known as Sharif University of Technology, which is known as the MIT of Iran. That's where I went to school when I was in Iran, and yet they were hoping that this way they can frighten other students That hasn't happened. More people are joining, more sectors of the society are participating in the protests. You have the students, you have the workers, you have women heavily involved. You have all sectors of society in all 31 provinces of Iran. And this Iran uprising, many people are chanting, don't call it uprising, it's a revolution.
Okay, so this particular revolution, how is it different from what's happened in the past? Because there have been situations in the past where there have been revolutions or uprisings, as we have called them here in the West, but this is a revolution, you say. So what is different with this situation than before in terms of what the outcome could be?
Well, keep in mind that a year ago, there was a new president installed and handpicked by the Supreme Leader Ali Khamenei. This new president is Ebrahim Raisi. And his mission was to prevent exactly what's now happening in Iran, to prevent the restart of these uprisings that were all over Iran since 2017. And the reason they handpicked Raisi, because he's notorious for the horrible role he has played all his life in killing people, putting people in jail and tortured them, including the 1988 massacre of as many as 30,000 political prisoners, 90% of them belonging to the main Iranian opposition movement, the MEK, hoping that by installing Raisi, people would be frightened and there would be no chance of restart of these protests. So keep in mind, this is happening after Raisi. Second, what's different now compared to the previous demonstrations is that it's very highly organized. The fact that it has continued this long, over 3 weeks, going into the 4th week, the way it's so focused on the Supreme Leader Khamenei and the regime itself as a whole, even though different issues come up from the covering of the hair, the hijab, and all of these things, but they all quickly turn into slogans against the entirety of the regime. The fact that, unlike previous ones, both the larger cities and the smaller towns, both the intellectuals and the poor and the deprived are involved in the protests, it shows how really nationwide it is. This is like a national movement on the part of the people, like nothing you had seen before. And the repressive forces have not been as effective as they wanted to be. They were hoping that with killing over 400 already, this will put down the uprising. It hasn't. And look at the amount of international support that it has generated all over the world, from the United States to European nations to countries in the region to celebrities. Everyone is talking about Iran. Is talking about the desire of the people of Iran for change. We didn't see that kind of a situation. That's why I feel, given especially the organized nature of this movement, this hopefully will succeed sooner rather than later.
All right. So at the end of all of this, what is it that it would take for the protesters to be satisfied?
Regime change. This is the only way that will satisfy the protesters, is to see the end of the rule of the clerics. And they are so determined, because they have experienced everything else before. The elections, reform promises. They tested everyone and everything, and nothing satisfies them now. And they have realized, the people have realized, that if we see the poverty that is engulfing the country. Iran is a huge country, very rich country. It has the second largest oil and gas reserves in the world. And look, not even mentioning all the natural resources, the human resources, the very vibrant generation that is there, yet 2/3 of the population live below the poverty line. Why? The corruption. All the money goes to the clerics and the Revolutionary Guards. The level of repression that is out there, it has really convinced everyone that no matter what the problem is in the country, there's only one solution for it, and that's regime change by the people of Iran, not the Iraqi style, not the other models. None of that is needed or is called for. Rather, a genuine change from within. And you can see the level of dedication and the resolve on the part of population. that 43 years of resistance against this regime, you know, this hasn't happened overnight. There's been a history of resistance against the Ayatollahs. All of that is now is paying off, and we feel, everyone feels that this is the moment. No matter, you know, how long more it will take, but the downfall of the Ayatollahs is inevitable.
Alireza, as always, thank you for a very in-depth and concise and enlightening debrief and the discussion to help us understand the situation. It is a very serious problem that the world needs to watch. And thank you for bringing these details to us.
Thank you so much, JJ. Always a pleasure to be on the show. And thank you for the great work you're doing to inform the public about the realities on the ground that they may otherwise not have access to that information.